So, if I were to see you out on the street, I wouldn't necessarily peg you as a rapper per se. How the hell did you get into hip hop? Like, what inspired you to become a rapper?
My older brother. My older brother introduced me to rap music when I was 12 years old. Before that, I was listening to like punk and indie rock and like grunge and stuff. And he gave me a tape of a rapper named Lord Finesse, Return of the Funky Man, was the album. And I heard that and it was just the coolest thing ever. It was so different from the rap music that was being played on the radio at the time, and it just kind of changed my perspective on what I thought rap music wasn't for like a white southern suburbanite, middle class kid. Listening to like New York, like underground rap music from like the Bronx and Brooklyn was just like the most exotic thing. Like it might as well have been like Brazilian folk music, or like it could have been anything. Like it was just so foreign and exciting and like romantic, especially that time, which was like so much about like storytelling and like this is a fascinating thing to me, and I was completely addicted. And from that point on, I was obsessed with rap music, and I decided that I wanted to learn how to freestyle. So I just practiced freestyling for 2 years until I felt like I was ready to start battling people. And then I kind of continued from there, and it built 15 years later to this.
As far as like being part of like the battling scene and all that sort of stuff, like being like the kind of quirky white guy, has that ever held you back in any ways, or how did you manage to become something in this hip hop scene?
I mean,
being who you are.
When I first started out, it was different because it was like. I would go to battles and I'd be one of the only white kids there, And now it's the exact opposite. You go to battles and there'd be like 3 black kids there. And so, it's one of those things where like a battle is a funny thing because your weaknesses are going to be exploited. And so you have to just sort of embrace them and accept like that you are. If you try to cover up your weaknesses, people will pick them apart immediately. And so I would go to them dressed like the whitest motherfucker out there. Like I would wear short shorts and long blonde hair and like tank tops and shit. And just like I would play it up and just embrace the fact. Like, and that was, I guess, sort of the thing that was always like particularly for the rap music that I grew up in, like the mantra of like keeping it real always kind of rung true for me in a way that like I think maybe like it's kind of lost its meaning in that like for me it always just meant like do the thing that you do, like, and don't try to be something you're not. I never wanted to pretend like I was a gangster or anything like that. I just made music my way and thought of things my way, and that was it was kind of sink or swim in that. You had to either embrace it or you would just get shot the fuck down.
Yeah. Well, you're obviously known for your freestyles. I've seen you many times, and I am still mind-boggled as to how you do that. As far as your writing process goes, do you ever take things from the freestyles that you collect along the way, or do you actually sit down and write in one session, or piece things together that you write in a notebook?
I don't write in a notebook anymore. I haven't written in a notebook for years. I've done everything on the computer and phone now, which has really changed the nature of my writing process, because it's with a notebook you can like write something and like X it out and kind of like draw things inside, and it sort of becomes a bit more of like a mishmash, whereas when you're writing on a computer, like in a Word document, and you don't like something and you delete it, like you can spend 2 hours writing and deleting and writing, deleting and writing, deleting, then you look up and you have 2 lines written. So it requires, much more precision and much more focus, and it sort of changed the way that my songs have been shaped into a much more like critical and analytical like structure for creation. So with that being said, like sometimes songs will just fall right out of you, but that's a rare thing. Like most of the time, I'll write a song, I'll walk away from it, I'll work on another song, I'll drink some coffee, I'll go on a road trip, like I'll come back to it, and I'll tinker, and it's more like writing a novel or writing a paper, where you have to formulate this thesis and find the evidence and execute everything and tie it all together. There are things that have come up in freestyles that have then been brought into songs, but more conceptually than anything. I'm actually, for records that I'm working on now, I'm actually starting to experiment with like freestyling on record and doing sort of like the structure that Jay-Z has been doing for a long time, where he freestyles and sort of refines a freestyle. Like he'll do one take on a freestyle, then go back and like redo piece by piece by piece by piece, like tightening up lines, replacing lines, shifting things around. So instead of like writing it out, he's sort of like writing it out on record. Mm-hmm. So I've been toying with that a little bit for some of the side projects and some of my new solo stuff as well too. But yeah, so I'm starting to kind of fold the freestyling a little bit into it.
When you freestyle, is there a particular way that you envision things in your head to manage to spurt that out the way that you do? Because taking that many suggestions from audience members, I could only imagine what it's like trying to retain all that and then create a story from what you put together. Is there any particular way that you see things in your head? How do you do that? How does that work?
It's sort of like the two like analogs that I find that are the most like helpful to use to describe it to people. Is it's sort of like learning a second language. Mm-hmm. You start out like learning basically just memorizing vocabulary and learning how to conjugate verbs, and you get to that next step where you can like order a meal at a restaurant, and then you get to that third step where you can have a rough conversation, and then like where you talk about your family and that sort of thing, and then there's that final step where you get to that level of fluency in a foreign language where you can discuss poetry and ephemeral concepts and arguments, it's sort of like rap was like that for me. I started out, I was as bad as every other white kid out there, and then eventually over years and years of practice and work got to the point where I could sort of just speak in rhyme. And the other way to look at it as well too is it's sort of like playing chess, where you start out and you just are kind of like seeing the board as it is every move, and then as you get better and better and better, you start to see the board in the future, and you start to see potential moves, and you start to get to see 10 moves in the future. And so I'm now at a point where I can sort of just kind of start setting up things in advance, generally 10 to 30 seconds down the line, and start building towards it.
What was that?
It doesn't always work that way, but everyone has their off nights and everyone has their great nights. But it generally comes together pretty well.
Well, you've never ceased to astound me.
Thanks.
I've read that you're a little bit of a nerd for classical literature. Do you feel that's inspired your writing in any way, shape, or form, or is it more of just a side thing? I'm a firm believer that a writer's a reader that's brought to emulation.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. My real love of language is really. I mean, I started out loving rap music, but I really found a love of language and poetry in college when I went to school to be a director for theater and opera and ballet, and I fell completely in love with. Shakespeare was sort of the thing that blew my mind apart when I really learned about sort of the codes hidden in his scansion and that sort of thing, and understood the complexity of it. It sort of made me kind of just throw out everything that I admired before that, because it was just it seemed like you guys are just lazy. You guys are just drunk and emoting on a piece of paper, and this person is really doing something magical. There's a poet named Gerard Manley Hopkins who's a huge influence on my writing, and specifically a poem called The Wind Hover, which is just probably about 50 years ahead of its time in the way that he used internal rhyme and the sort of cadences and the things that he was using with rhyme scheme and structure, pattern and rhythm, and that sort of stuff just radiates in all my work. And then I think even content-wise, I tend to be a bit, I think, less postmodern as far as content. I tend to write about sort of relentlessly optimistic things, like a
romantic.
Yeah, I'm a definite romantic, and I definitely am a relentless optimist. I try not to be very cynical in my writing, and I try to, if I'm writing about something that I perceive as a problem with myself or the world, I sort of see it as I try to present it as a opportunity for something else. Where can we find the good and the glory in this? So all that's there for sure, and I think that comes more from classical writers and classical playwrights and people that are more sort of old world thinking than a lot of contemporary writers. Sort of annoy me with their cynicism a bit.
No, I agree. I'm a Wordsworthian for sure. Now, each album that you've put out obviously has a different theme or style that comes along with it. How would you personally, in a nutshell, explain the progression or styles of each album?
Well, I think I think I've just been getting better at it. I wasn't a musician. I was a theater person. I was a director and a lighting designer, and I never grew up in a garage, like jamming with a band. Like for me, until I started writing music, I was a battle rapper for like 6 or 8 years, and battle rapping isn't really an art form. It's like a craft. It's about precision and being the best at something. It's a skill set. And then there comes a point where like you can either take that skill set and apply it to art, where you're pushing a culture, pushing your personal, your emotion and your mind further. So that was kind of late to me. So I didn't grow up with the language of music creation. Like my creative language was academic, which is like the director's work and the designer's work is very academic, and there's emotion in it, but essentially it's library work, and so it took me a while to kind of get how to kind of connect those two together. And I feel like over the course of the 4 records, like the first one was the first record, it was me just kind of like throwing things in a pot, And the second one was really me experimenting and just playing around and going as far out as I possibly could. I had found sort of like a stable little island to sit on, and then I was just like sending boats in every direction out in the ocean. And the third one was, Pomegranate was really, I felt like where I started to kind of really find confidence to pursue a goal. And then this last one, the goal was just to make the best goddamn record that I could make, and I really feel like I did. I feel like for the first time I look back at that record and I feel like everything was what I wanted it to be. So I think that the last 4 records have really been about me just like progressing as a musician, and in the future now that I feel confident, like I feel like my skill set as a musician, as a musical artist is much bigger and stronger now that I can really start pushing myself into really unfamiliar territory and uncomfortable places and try to stretch myself as an artist.
Awesome. Well, how long have you been on the road? Because I feel like I keep seeing you come back around. Is there any time that you actually spend more than like a couple days in one place, or?
Yeah, I was home off and on essentially for most of the summer. I mean, I went for 6 weeks to Eastern Europe. I took a week trip to Russia, did a couple like spot dates in and around America for festivals and stuff. I mean, the most that I'm ever home uninterrupted is maybe 3 weeks. I'll at least leave for 1 day or 2 days to go do a show somewhere or go work on music somewhere or do something like that. I'm never home for very long. So like 3 weeks is a pretty glorious break for me. And that's been like, but most of the time it's like I'm on the road 8 months out of the year, spliced up, all over. It's been a while. I'll be home for a good long haul after the new year. And it'll be pretty much from August till the new year that I've been gone.
Do you get stir crazy?
When I'm home?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do. Less and less, though, the older that I get. And especially now I'm living in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I feel like, honestly, it's the first place that I've lived in the last 10 years of touring that I really, really loved being there. I lived in Seattle before, and I really liked Seattle, but I was always ready to leave when tour came around. And Minneapolis has been the first time that when tour comes around, I'm like, man, I feel like I'm missing something when I leave there. I didn't feel like I was missing anything in Florida or Texas or Seattle. I really feel like, sometimes I feel like I'm really missing out by being on the road.
Is there any particular reason why Minneapolis calls to you?
It's, I think, the best music scene in America, and I think it's the best creative scene in America right now, with the visual art and theater and music and just the internal support network and the fact that everyone there works, like they do stuff. There's a lot of cities that have really great music scenes, but they're sort of, by and large, like inundated with people that are just in the scene to be in the scene. They're not really like goal-oriented. Seattle's an amazing city, but it's not really cool to be ambitious there. And I'm like a pretty relentlessly ambitious person, and I like to push myself and push my work as an artist, as a business. And my friends in Minneapolis, I would go there and we'd all work on music when I'd hang out. Like we hang out and we work on music. We very rarely hang out and don't do something musical. And so as a result, like I moved to Minneapolis, I was instantly in 3 different bands and working on all these different side projects and making guest appearances on all these records. And this is like, I work there. And I love the people that are doing stuff, and it's exciting because the stuff that gets done there doesn't just stay there either. It's not a bunch of people making a bunch of bands going to see each other's shows and never leaving the Twin Cities. Those people that are doing stuff are getting out, and those are my friends, and it's awesome. It's an amazing time to be in a really amazing city, and I feel really lucky to be a part of it.
Now, I know you've toured Europe a few times. How would you say that Europe's different than the U.S. being a touring act?
A lot of ways. I mean, there's a sort of like fundamental structural difference about the business of live music in Europe. A lot of countries get funding from their government, which is, it is what it is. It's a little easier to do in a smaller country, there's also a lot of the places that we play are like non-profit venues that are like squatted, like illegal venues that have been taken over by like punk kids and then turned into venues over the course of 2 years or a decade. And the kids that run them are like graphic designers or cooks or whatever, and they just do it for fun. They do it because they feel that there's a need in their city for live music and no one's filming the way that they want. And so they just make it happen. And so I think that's the top. And from there trickles down like a very fundamental, like different approach as audience, as musicians, as sound engineers. But the fact that like one of the things that has been the most startling about going to Europe and playing shows in Europe is that I feel like people in Europe, when they don't have a show come to their city, they go, well, let's bring that show to our city. People in America, when they don't have a show coming to their city, they complain to me on Facebook. And that is just like changes everything from every other aspect. There's a lot of other stuff at play too, like people in Europe go to concerts to discover new music, whereas Americans by and large go to concerts to sing along to bands they already know. And there's also a different perception about how bands should be treated in mainland Europe. It's not the same. UK and America and Canada are very similar, but in mainland Europe you get there and there's food laid out for you. The sound is amazing. You might be in like an abandoned castle that some punk squatted 20 years ago, but it'll the best sound that you'll have. And you'll play your show, they'll have housing built for you, you'll wake up in the morning, they'll cook you breakfast. Like, it's a whole different understanding about like how the artist should be treated. And that doesn't mean that I hate playing in America. It's far from the truth.
Most certainly not. And oases like that do exist in America.
They do. They certainly do, but they're few and far between. And the thing is, it just makes it that much harder to get a music career started in America. Because like I got over to Europe, and granted, I got over to Europe because I had started in America. So there's like, the door swings in a lot of directions. But like I spent the first 6 years in America sleeping in the car and eating ramen noodles. And my first tour in Europe, I was sleeping in hotels. And that, I wasn't like famous over there. That's just sort of the bare expectation of a band touring in Europe. Like that's the intro level. And so it's a huge difference, and the pay is better, and like we sell a ton of merch, and the crowds are huge, and so we go where our business is too. As much as I love touring in the States, and we always tour in the States, we do have to go over to Europe a lot because it's really much better for our business.
Europe is a very appreciative place when it comes to art, at least from what I experienced there. Just even seeing the graffiti in Rome just because they appreciate it.
Well, and there's sort of like this is going to be kind of a focus of a lot of my new record, is just this mentality in other countries that for some reason in the last, I don't know how many generations, it's been slowly lost in America, but it's just sort of like, at least the romantic notion of how America was started, it doesn't really apply to most Americans' like daily lives anymore. But I see it being put into practical application in Europe, with kids just being like, we need to do this. Whether it's start a club, whether it's write graffiti, whether it's be in a band, whether it's protest some sort of government action, a tuition hike. They just say we need to do this. And they do it, and they don't give a fuck what anybody else thinks, and they don't give a fuck if they get arrested. And I have these conversations with these really quiet, mild-mannered, kids that are just like, yeah, well, we don't care. We don't fucking care what people think. This has to be done. We have to do this. And that sort of compulsion is something you don't see that much in America, and it sort of bums me out. I feel sometimes I go to Europe to see people live the American dream.
I can understand that. Now, I saw you perform at South by Southwest at your showcase, the Fake Four showcase, which is amazing. And then you did a string of shows afterwards, and then you were supposed to play Pawn Takes King. Mm-hmm. What happened with that? Chesky said that you had lost your voice or something along those lines?
No, I hadn't lost my voice. There had been a double booking in the shows, and we had actually canceled that before the we had canceled it like a week and a half before the festival even, because we were playing 11 shows in 4 days.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, and we got offered a show we got like double booked, and we decided to take the other show instead of the Pawn Takes King, because we had played Pawn Takes King the year before. And so yeah, it was just sort of that moment too, where it was just like, cool, we could probably make this work, but do we really need 12 shows in 4 days and then have to continue? It was in the middle of a tour. We had done a month, and then we were going to do that and then do another 2.5 weeks. And we were just like, you're going to ruin the last 2.5 weeks? Like, no, we can't do that.
Yeah, it's been intense.
And 11 shows is pretty much pushing it anyway. It was a very productive South by Southwest, but man, it damn near killed me.
Did you get any time to go out and listen to any other music?
Absolutely not, no.
Yeah.
And I haven't, it's like probably my 11th South by, and I haven't really seen a show at South by for the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, unless it's on the bill that I'm on, I very rarely get to see it. I went and hung out while my friends Doomtree played. I went and saw them, but it was basically just so I could see them.
Yeah, them and Das Races.
Yeah.
It was a
I was
great
just like,
show.
cool, I just want to go see those guys. Like, I want to see my friends. And yeah, that was about it. Like, there was and that's how it is with music festivals. Even like playing regular music festivals, not like, like conferences like that. It's like, as much as I was so stoked to play Soundset in Minneapolis and wanted to see all these rap groups, and I was like walking, and I got to watch Big Crit while I walked. I was like, I really want to see Big Crit, and I got to see him as I walked from one interview to another. And I was just like, oh man, this is awesome. Like, that was the most that I got to see, which was a fucking bummer.
Being in high demand is a double-edged sword.
That's a business, and it's a job there too.
Well, speaking of Doomtree, there's rumors that you're working on something with POS. When can we expect that? Do you know?
We have a plot for a kind of release date, but it's not public yet.
Okay.
And when we know, you guys will be the first to know.
We're very excited about it. Any other side projects you're working on right now?
Yeah, working on a couple of mixtapes for myself. I'm working on my solo record, and then I'm also started a band with some friends of mine from Minneapolis and Wisconsin. My friend Ryan Olson, who makes music for a group called Polisa and a group called Gangs. My friend John Carey, who's in a band called S. Carey. My friend BJ Burton, who's in a band called Love Language, originally from North Carolina, actually. And Justin Vernon, who's a musician named Bon Iver. We're all in a band together. But that's about all that I can tell you about that band.
I understand. Now, I remember the past couple times that you came to the Milestone in Charlotte, you told us that we were the first audience that you looked out into the crowd and you saw everybody singing every single lyric to every song. Would you say that there's some sort of relationship that you have with the Milestone in that regard?
Yeah, it's kind of, we were talking about on the drive up, because we had to drive basically past, it was Tuckasegee.
Yeah, Tuckasegee.
Yeah, Tuckasegee. Basically drove past the Milestone to get here, and it was just like, it's kind of like, this is a cool venue, it's really awesome, but it's like, wow, it's weird being here, not playing the Milestone. I mean, we've been playing the Milestone for years, and and it's, every single time we're there, we end up hanging out after hours and drinking, and we've just gotten to know everybody that works there, and like, we're fans of, like all their bands, and it's just like a place, it's like home, and there's definitely something beyond the built-in, just support of the club. But yeah, it's totally true. That was the first time that I ever felt the whole crowd sing along to something. And granted, it wasn't like the biggest crowd I'd ever had, but every single person was singing along, and that was the first time that it ever happened, and that was a very big benchmark for me. And
was
now
that 2009?
Probably thereabout. And it's now started to happen other places, but that was the first, and that's a big thing that will always matter.
I remember you saying that. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Milestone, that's awesome. It has a tendency to bring out the best in everybody.
Yeah.
While we're there.
It's / the worst.
Yeah, exactly. No,
Which is
it's
what
the
makes
whiskey. It's the cheap
Oh,
whiskey.
God, yeah.
That's what
Amazing.
does it. Yeah.
It's amazing guitar.
Now, were you robbed in Atlanta?
I was. Yeah, I got off I was playing a thing for. I was doing this small thing for my PR company in Athens, and I got off the plane. I flew into Atlanta at 1:30 or 12:30 or something. My friends picked me up, and they took me to the bar for last call. It was a bar over in the 4th Ward, and it's right around the corner from my friend's house. I stayed with them all the time in Atlanta, and just this girl, she's director at an art museum there, and at the High, and she's, like lives in a cute little area, walk around the corner, but it's Fourth Ward, so it's, like good block, bad block kind of thing.
Yeah.
And gone to this bar and tons of times and just walk the 3 blocks back home. She does it all the time by herself, and we were 5 of us walking back after getting 1 drink, and we came around the corner and 4 dudes with guns came out. Just like, what can you do?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, please take all of my shit.
Yeah, man, totally. They were super young. I mean, you could see, like, once they got up close, like, they didn't know what they were doing. Like, it was so funny. They were running up out of the darkness with their guns out and their arms over their faces like this, which is the funniest thing ever, because they ran out, like, covering their faces so no one would see them, and then they got up close and they had to be like, okay, give us all your stuff. Just, like, the most, like, Bush League shit ever, But they were, like, super young. I think probably, like, 18 and young 20s, and they were terrified. Like, you could just see the confusion and fear. It was just like, cool, there you go. I mean, all in all, it probably cost me $250 to get everything back on track with new phones and getting cards replaced and buying a wallet again. And I lost $94 cash. And like, the way I saw it, as much as it sucks, it was $250 to not be dead. Like, that's a pretty good deal for me.
That's a bargain for that.
We called the cops never came. We called them twice, they never came.
That's Atlanta.
Yeah, man, that shit was awesome.
It's surprising in Fourth Ward, though, because everybody that lives around that area is like the hipstery crowd,
yeah,
so
totally.
The cops tend to
Totally.
flock a little bit more.
What's funny is it's become sort of a thing, because a guy got caught on video, and they happened to rob us, like, right in front of the home of the, like, Fourth Ward neighborhood commissioner. Like, and he has like 12 video cameras on his property, and they caught it all on video. Not well enough that you could, prosecute anybody. It's grainy as hell, and it's just like whatever, like, 4 18-year-old black kids in Atlanta with like, good luck, like whatever. And like, who cares? That's not even the point. Like, I think the problem more than anything was the fact that the whole epic failing of the police to be involved or do anything. And so it's like apparently I guess become like a big news story now. Our friend in Atlanta, she's been interviewed by CBS and shit.
Oh wow.
Yeah, totally, because apparently like people are pretty up in arms about it, but whatever, man. It's the fucking cops.
So, I mean, it's a city too.
It's
what
a city,
can you
exactly.
expect?
I mean, it's like that's the thing is I've been to fucking 4 continents and God knows how many countries in way shadier neighborhoods than that.
And you get fucking robbed in Atlanta.
Yeah, well, and the thing too is like normally we would stay with our friend over in Atlanta in the fucking trap. I mean, he lived in a fucking ghetto fortress, like barbed wire, everything shotgun by his bed. Never got robbed there. Never got our car broken into there. And we're in the 4th Ward and like a block away from an adorable little coffee shop. And it's whatever. It's just one of those things. You travel cities, you get robbed. But I can't believe I've never been robbed before. This is whatever, man. That's a small price to pay. I ain't even worried about it.
Great. You've been on the road for a long time, as you've stated before. Do you have a notable tour story that you can tell me without selling yourself out or anybody else?
I mean, like my favorite one right now is for this. I have a tattoo on my left wrist that says, the right wrist that says, "Turn left, now go fast." And we were in Poland, in a town that his name I always butcher. It's Wrocław. It's spelled like Wrocław, but it's on the border of like southern Poland and Germany. And it's a university town. We were playing a festival there, and the promoter was like, "There's no address on the club, and it's like in a place you can't normally drive cars. So just get into town, send us a text message, and we'll come have someone escort you in, escort your car in." So we go to coffee shop, send this guy an email, and he comes and picks us up, and he's like this really young, like plucky, like 20-year-old, like college student, and he's like, it's his first time doing anything. He wants to do this for a living, so he wants to be really professional. But he's very nervous. He wants to be cool and all. And he's struggling really hard, like internally, to make sure everything goes perfectly, but also be cool and not too uptight and everything. You could see him nervous. And it was me and my buddy Bluebird and my manager Brock, and we're in like a little like Volkswagen station wagon, but it's so packed full of merch. It's basically 3-seater now. So Jacques and I like pile in the back, and Brock is driving, and then the handler is the Polish kid is in the front. And Jacques and I are like fucking around and being dumb, and just kind of preying on the Polish kid's nervousness. And he's like giving directions. He's like, okay, go this way, okay, and then go down this street here on the right, okay. I'll keep going, one more block, okay. Turn left, now go fast. And my manager Brock looks at him, he's like, what? He's like, go fast. And he's like, why? And he's like, because this is one way, and you are going the wrong way. And Brock just like, without any hesitation, just like, boom, floors it. And we go like 4 or 5 city blocks the wrong way down one-way street, like oncoming traffic coming, and he's like, okay, now turn right, boom. And we go like this, and like over this bump into this like pedestrian-only zone, and like, full like Chevy Chase, European vacation skid stop, and he just like throws this piece of paper on our dashboard so we can park there, and he goes, "Welcome to Poland." Yeah, just like we all got that tattoo a couple of weeks later to commemorate.
Nice.
It's like a really awesome, hilariously disorienting experience in a foreign country.
Sounds pretty amazing. Last but not least, I heard you say something about a new album.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what you can.
I'm like 4 songs deep on it. There's still so much, I mean, obviously like writing and recording and work that has to be done, and then there's other business stuff that has to be done. I would say hopefully you would see it sometime at the beginning of 2014. I mean, that's the sort of process that it takes. 'Cause even when I finish the record, there's another 6 months of like stuff that has to happen afterwards,
Yeah.
which is the most painful 6 months of my life, because I just want everybody to hear the goddamn thing and judge me. But hopefully, yeah, beginning of 2014, maybe sooner, maybe later. There's no telling. Yeah, but I do want it out pretty fast because I don't want to wait as long as I had. Previous records were 3-year gaps, and I would like to get it 2 years or 2.5 years, get that gap narrowed down. But I'm gonna have a bunch of other new music coming out between then, and that's sort of one of the reasons there'll be pauses in it, because I'm working on all these side projects and stuff too. So.
With the side projects, where can we find that stuff? Will you be posting it on
Yeah.
your Facebook and Twitter
Yeah,
and all that
it'll
sort of
be
social
everywhere.
networking shit?
Yeah, I won't
Okay.
shut up about it.
Okay, good.
Awesome.
Good, because we want to know about it.
I want you to know about it.
And Charlotte's very glad to have you back,
It's good to
even
be
if
back.
you're not at the Milestone. This is our second favorite place.
Excellent. That's good.
So-
We're keeping it in the family. At the very
Exactly. We're all family here. I mean, it's one of those close-knit towns where we have an awesome music scene, and we're kind of getting out there at the same time to some degree, because, I mean, we're Charlotte, North Carolina. How much can you get out? But we're all family here.
least. I love it here.
Well, it's good to have you back.
It's good to be back.
Thank you, Andy.
Cheers.